Good evening, everybody. I would like to call to order the Newcastle City Council study session. Tonight we'll be conducting a study session from 5 until about 6:50 p.m. We will not be making decisions, but just having discussion about the preliminary budget. And with that, I know City Manager Pingle has some words to share regarding process and procedures tonight. So City Manager, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. A couple of things. So you may or may have not seen an email from me around 2:30 or so. And that was primarily about I know we've been back and forth on transferring REIT money to the street fund. We were able to get some additional information. Don and I were on the horn with Curtis quite a bit today and making sure we have that all figured out. And so we are comfortable making that recommendation that we use REIT funds to transfer to the street fund today. And so we want to make that recommendation. And so what you have in front of you, everybody should have an updated agenda packet in front of you. That includes a brief memo, just kind of walking through our discussions with Curtis and making sure we came to what we've been trying to run down is making sure that this is actually an option before we recommend it as an option. And so we were able to make that determination today and get some information out. And so you have a brief memo regarding that. So what it would require is that we amend our code. But in discussions with Curtis, it should be a very easy amendment, as in for those two sections that dictate that REIT be used to finance capital projects. There's additional language there, but simply at the end of those sections as uses, we would add and as otherwise allowed by law. Curtis indicated that it would be as simple an amendment as that. And with doing that amendment, it's not something that we would be worried about having to change the code and then change it back after the RCW sunset or anything like that. It could just stay that way. That way, if anything's allowed in the future as far as additional REIT uses, our code would already be in a place where we could use them in those ways, rather than rather than our own code restricting us further than state law restricts us. And so, so 3 pages back, and that what you have in front of you, and all of this is available online now, is just a proposed substitute amendment budget ordinance. And so, and certainly if anybody has questions or is opposed to using REIT in this manner, certainly we need to have that discussion. But the feedback I got last week when we were initially pursuing this was I didn't get any negative from anybody, and so I assumed we were moving forward. So when we get into the regular meeting today, the kind of the first order of business would be to get the substitute amendment budget ordinance in front of us, so that then any additional amendments were going off of that amended budget ordinance that includes the transfer from REIT and not from the general fund. Questions so far? Okay. And so I guess first question, is there questions or concerns about using REIT in this way? Essentially, the RCW allows us to use REIT in this way up through December 31st, 2023. So it's kind of a one-shot deal for us. I think if it was more of a blanket allow, that would require a much broader, council discussion around it. Sorry about that. But certainly with this limited time we have to take advantage, staff recommends that we use it, especially with where we are with budget revenues versus expenditures. And so
that was me, Jeff. I apologize.
certainly happy to answer any questions about that, or certainly if there's concern about using it that way, I'd love to take any questions or council can discuss.
Thank you so much. Any questions from the panelists who are in attendance before I go to Councilmember Clark? Okay, look good there. Councilmember Clark, do you have any questions? Okay, see there.
Councilmember, did you want to unmute yourself?
There we go. For the record, Councilmember Clark is joining us remotely tonight. Any questions, Councilmember Clark? Okay. Hearing no questions. All right, we'll move on.
Okay. So as far as getting started, and certainly this doesn't have to be the extent of the discussion, I just wanted to point to from the memo that was in the packet, that second tranche of the other potential savings that we had identified as things that the council should discuss prior to staff making those reductions. And I'm just going to kind of go through that list. If there's questions or just council discussion about those, I'll invite that. And so I'll just go down the list. The first one was the $10,000 in professional services in the city council budget. That's primarily for facilitation of a city council retreat. And I'll leave it at that. So that was one where we haven't had a retreat for a few years. Certainly we have the option of trying to get somebody for less than that, or not using a facilitator, but that was something that is the council's preference.
Did you want questions?
Yeah,
after?
yeah.
Okay.
So-
All right. Any questions? What we'll do is entertain questions for City Manager Pingle after each of those items is named. And Councilmember Clark, I'm monitoring the screen, so if you just pop your hand up, that would be great if you have a question. Okay. Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Okay. The second one was in the city clerk budget under communications, the community survey. We did a community survey in 2021, so 2023 would be the next scheduled time. And so that was another one identified as potentially being one where, we've done it, as far as I understand, that's been something that's been done every other year, but certainly it could be done on a different time frame or less frequent.
Questions? Survey? Okay, seeing none.
All right. The next one was rentals and communications line items. This is town hall rental, and then the postcards we sent out announcing it. And so certainly we could, really that's up to the council whether we continue to do a town hall the way we've done it in the past using the golf club. And then there was a suggestion that we could use social media more rather than postcards as far as getting the word out for the town hall. And so that's where that $7,600 comes from.
Questions on Councilmember Charbonneau? Go ahead, please.
Thank you. I just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. The way it's stratified, what is the cost exactly of the rental currently if we're doing it at the golf course?
I think we've used that the 5,000 it's been right around that cost.
Okay. Gotcha.
I think that also, and Dawn can tell me if I'm wrong, I think that's included the food.
Okay. Gotcha. I think, yeah, I'm interested in potentially talking about a RISDN or something like that, but there would be costs associated there as well too for the janitorial services, the rental. So, yeah, I'm open to talking about that one, but I just want to make sure I was understanding it. So thank you.
And Councilmember Charbonneau, if you can be sure you're speaking into the mic. You're hard to hear, even though you had your mic on. And I want to make sure Councilmember Clark can hear you. Thank you.
All right, next one, meeting meals. So we reduced the meeting meals line item from 3,500 down to 1,500 in the city manager budget, and we left the city activities budget alone just because the 5,000 in that budget comes from 4 different line items. The three different events that we have, and then the biggest tranche of that is for the volunteer thank you event.
Questions? Okay, moving on.
And then the $8,500 in communications and community engagement. This was essentially a placeholder for additional communications costs for 2023. There's been anticipation that we would enhance our outreach, especially with comp plan coming up. Also, as a part of onboarding me, it's certainly been mentioned by several council members that maybe there's more we could do as far as just not necessarily major town halls, but more small ones where that could be more issue specific, and so that was what that was earmarked for. Additional outreach.
Okay, questions, Councilmember Villasenor?
Thank you. I think community engagement and communication comes up quite a bit here. I think that I don't want to overlook the fact that we tend to lean on electronic media to outreach to people, whereas I think that we're missing a big part of our community by limiting ourselves to electronic communication. I think we have to be strategic about mailers and those kinds of things, but since we haven't had a local newspaper in a long time, that there are a number of people in the community who just don't engage on electronic media. So I don't want to see us carve out too much that we can't get something, a mailer into the hands of people when it comes to really important things like comp plan or whatever we decide that we want to engage in electronic outreach and then traditional outreach as well. So let's just keep that in mind as we're trying to carve things out.
Yeah, even the postcard for the town hall is really critical. I believe there was a time when we did not do a postcard and attendance suffered greatly. So, and that was prior to the pandemic, of course. All right, any further questions, comments? All right, and this is really a great time to throw those comments out on these items, so just a reminder for that. All right, Mr. City Manager.
And the last one on the list was the professional service line item in community engagement. The 5,250 is for, that had been for the Historical Society. What I didn't understand when I had initially put the memo out, as far as those suggested reductions, was that when the Historical Society fell under the city's purview before they formed their own 501c3, we have held $15,000 in donations for the Historic Society, and so that budget was essentially expenditure of those donated funds, and so I had initially put that out as something that we could potentially take away, but we can't. We have donated funds on their behalf, and so we have to spend them that way. If Director Palmer has additional info on that, I'd welcome him.
Yeah. In 2016, we had 17 funds. One of those was historic preservation. Another one was the Arts Fund. And so I combined 17 funds into 10 funds. And with those 10 funds, two of those were folded into the general fund, Historic Preservation and Arts. And then we could identify those by the line items. I never anticipated them to be subject of being cut because of that, but through the information that was provided to Scott, I didn't know there was a recommendation to change it until I'd read that and brought that forward. So that's the history of it, and so my recommendation is to not cut that. In fact, even with the $5,000, it'd still be carry forward of about 10. So, or whatever the number was, I don't remember what the number was, but so anyway.
And if I recall correctly, a portion of that money was bequeathed to the city from Milt Swanson's estate, I believe. And that was probably about, I don't know, when he passed away, 2013, 2014-ish maybe.
Yeah, those funds have been carried forward for years
Yeah.
before I got to it. So
Yeah, so that's, I mean, just out of respect. And of course, with development on the east side that is on the horizon, there could be a potential to finally use those funds to establish historical monument site or sites over there. So I really want council to be aware of that.
in addition to that, I used to budget 15,000, the amount of it, and the Historic Preservation never used it, so I started lowering that appropriation until I thought they would use it or, activate their commission to where they were starting to pay attention to their own budget. And so we can track the balance of it, which is still 15,000. So
Thank you. All right, any further comments on that? Okay. Next steps.
So as far as other potential savings or budget reductions, that's what I had for the council. If there's additional discussion or recommendations, that would be up for you guys.
Thank you, sir. All right, any further recommendations, any further reductions you want to mention? Again, if you recall the discussion in our last meeting, it was we want to hear about those before we go to the regular session at 7. We don't want any blindsiding, so please come forward with that information. We won't be making motions on that, but we want to know. So anyone in the live panel wants to bring anything? Councilmember Charbonneau, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I'll just share, and I would value potentially going around the table with my colleagues as well, just because I think we have time and we have means to discuss for the spirit of not blindsiding each other. I went over some of these items with Scott one-on-one. I'm open to potentially doing a facilitation of a retreat, not each year, but more seldomly, every 2 to 3 years, something along those lines. I think that could be a potential cost. The community survey, I think, is a very helpful framework for us, and I would not be in favor of cutting that. I think it's important to get that feedback in a very, statistically significant way, remove all of our own biases and look at like, hey, objectively, this is what we would like. I think, I've talked about it before. I am open to the idea of trying to have the town hall somewhere else that could be cheaper, potentially not providing food for folks. I think those are little things I think it's nice to have, but not critical. But I'm hesitant to maybe put a number for it because I don't know exactly what the rental would be from another space as well. Whether that's that could be a few different potential spots in Newcastle. So I would be interested in that. I think I would echo Councilmember comments on the, I think important to reach folks in multiple ways. Folks that are older might not check social media. Folks might use certain mediums and others don't. I think young folks might use electronic, but they may not get the emails and other stuff. But if it shows up at their door, they might register with them. I'm fine with cutting some general fund, meeting meals, money, and I think, what a sentiment I've heard a lot, which is not something we just talked about, was essentially coming back down to asking folks that emailed us what do they want to cut, asking folks what they want to cut, and it comes down to certain staff positions, which I think is really critical that we don't for a lot of reasons I'm sure we can get into during the meeting, but I think that's, I think I'll say that, I guess we can get into that, but that's where I'm standing with all of these and would encourage other folks to share as well.
Okay, any other comments on these or other items not listed here? And again, we're kind of looking to have the bulk of the discussion during this 2-hour window. So Councilmember Griffin, go ahead, please.
I'd like to bring up the issue of the miscellaneous charges in finance and also in the community, community development. Total of $53,000. Any place that I've been, that when I went in with a credit card, I got to pay the fees. The city doesn't charge, they call it merchant fees, I guess, or it's really credit card fees. So why should the city be paying somebody else's cost and passing it on to the citizens? And we shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah, I think that's certainly something that we can look into. Just from having a couple of different in a couple of different cities, every city I've worked for has had a different service organization when it came to their credit cards and they all had different rules and options and stuff, and so that's certainly one that we can look into as far as whether we have that potential or whether we can use a different service. Certainly one we can look into.
I don't know. I have a comment about that, actually. So, from a consumer's perspective, I feel if I'm making a transaction online using my debit or credit card, that it's for convenience purposes, and to be charged that extra fee is really a turnoff for me. I don't care about the couple of bucks per se, but the whole idea of it all, and I think that's sending a bad message. I also feel that the city could potentially be more at risk because we would have to take checks or PayPal or other forms of transactions. And if we ended up taking a personal check again, that puts us at risk for returned checks and having to manage them. And maybe it means a permit or something was issued, and now we're holding a check that was not honored by the bank. So, from 20 years of working in bad debt collections, I would be inclined not to make that recommendation.
Are we not equipped to take the bank information and do it that way rather than credit cards? That's what you do with if you want to buy your license tabs online, you got to pay for it with your bank card. If you pay it with a bank card, you pay extra. If you pay for the IRS, what you owe the IRS, you pay extra if you use a credit card.
I understand that, but we're serving 11,000 people. We're not serving millions. Councilmember Lakotia.
The checks and the customers we are talking about here are developers. So the developers are paying by credit card and the citizens are paying for their credit card fees. So these customers are developers who are coming and developing and making large profits. And in all of of state of Washington, you cannot pay property taxes. If you pay property taxes by credit card, you have to pay the fees. You go and get your driver's license or any of that, all of state of Washington, you have to pay. That's very typical of any government where you have to pay the merchant fees. And I discussed this with City Manager Scott, and Scott told me even in his city of Fircrest, they used to charge the merchant fee to the customer. Citizens were not paying merchant fee for the developers, so that was what he told me.
Dr. Palmer?
I was trying to get online here and I missed the original question. But the surmise of what I'm hearing is, first of all, we do charge a fee. It's in our fee ordinance. We charge 3% for the fee for measure or the MVP program, and we charge 3% for the use of the credit card. A couple years ago, we went through and did a analysis of what that fee should be, and some charge more, some charge less. We came up with 3%, so it'd be consistent. We do that now, and it's in the finance budget. It's about, I don't remember the dollar amount, but it's significant. And so every month when we do the reconciliation, we charge that charge appears on our bank statement. We charge it because it's an offset to our account. The fee is collected on the backside, though, and so when we assess the fee by the developers or any other fee for that matter. So I'm sorry I missed the original question, but.
So what is that 36,000 in finance miscellaneous? Because I exchanged that
merchant.
email and Scott
It is
told me
merchant
it is
fees.
merchant. So
Yeah.
why do we have that if we charge fees?
So it's still an expenditure, even though we have revenue on the other end.
Correct.
I actually didn't understand that until Don said that. So we still have to pay for it, but we're charging a fee on the other end, so we have revenue coming in on the revenue side.
Okay.
Is that split in the revenue? Can be like, because it's very confusing.
So it's in the general fund revenue stream. I believe I put it in the miscellaneous revenue stream, and then the fee expense for that is in the finance budget.
Deputy Mayor Sherlock, you're good? Okay. Any further? Okay. All right, anything else? Did we lose Councilmember Clark? Okay. Anything else? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thanks. I'll just speak to Councilmember Charbonneau's request for everyone to weigh in. I do think the community survey is extremely important. It's the only, data point that we put out there with the community, and I can't go along with cutting that because it's too important for our community. I also agree that the postcards are really important. I have a lot of neighbors in my neighborhood that have told me they're not on social media. They don't really pay attention to emails as much, and so I just think it's really important to try to reach everybody in a way that they take in communication. And I think we all agree that we want people to come to town halls and that kind of stuff. So I think it's really money well spent to make sure that everyone's aware when those are happening and where it is, the time and the place and all that. So I do have a little question about the meeting meals. I guess I'm a little confused. So the 5,040 in separate line items under community engagement, is that included in that 7,500, or is that a totally separate thing?
I believe the 7,500, I'd have to go back and look now, was just an amount identified as what we could cut out of the total meeting mills throughout the budget. And so I just tried to identify the biggest tranches of meeting those line items, which initially was the biggest ones in the city council budget, the next biggest ones in community activities, but the community activities is broken out between the 3 events, and then in general, but I think it's 33,000 or 3,300 in city activities for just general, but the bulk of that goes to the volunteer thank you event, and then there was 3,500 in the city manager budget, and we cut 2,000 of that out already, and so that's already out. So the big tranches right now are there's 5,000 in city activities and there's 7,500 in city council.
Councilmember Griffin.
Does that mean you've been having some meals that I didn't hear about? Getting back to the surveys, if the surveys are so important, we ought to make them that way. We ought to discuss them rather than one time. Because the last 2 surveys we've had, basically the only discussion we had was the night that the consultant come in and told us about what was going on. So if we're going to have surveys, maybe we ought to come up with some better questions and also study them and see what the people are really telling us in the survey.
Deputy Mayor Sherlock.
I'll second that. I think we should maybe even have like one of our study sessions be to talk about, go over again what we've seen in the past. And I know that it's important to have similar questions so that you can, be able to see trends and all that stuff. So I understand that's important, but I still think it's worth having a conversation about at some point. So yeah, I agree.
Councilmember Villasenor.
Yeah, I mean, the community survey is a tool. It's posted, and I refer to it pretty regularly. And even though we don't discuss it as a council, it is there for you and the rest of the community to click on it and open it at any time, and refer to it as you think through some of these issues. And I do that on a regular basis. But yeah, I think it's an important tool. I think as far as the questions that are in it, I mean, those are professionally created and used throughout the nation in different communities. And so, it's important for us to be able to gauge not only ourselves as we, move back and forth with regard to, the feelings and opinions of our residents, but to compare ourselves to other communities throughout the nation who are similar to us. And just, again, there's science to that. And that's what we're paying for. We're paying for that science. We're paying for that resource to be able to refer to regularly, even though we're not discussing it in depth, because the data's there. I mean, that's the presentation. I mean, there's no arguing the data. You can interpret it. You might be able to interpret it in different ways, and that might be an interesting discussion to have. But as far as it being a tool, it's a tool for all of us, not just us in this room, but for the entire community to be able to look at and say, I agree, I disagree, or to at least help them, just give them something to bounce their thinking off of on a regular basis. And so, like I said, I use it all the time.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor. Regarding the community survey, I'd just like to volunteer a couple of points. I know because I review all of your agenda bills that I have on various occasions actually edited in references back or recommended to sponsors of different proposals to you that they point out that results of the community survey supported what it was they were asking. And that's why I know that in making budget decisions for 2022, those statistically valid results of what the community said they wanted were part of the decisions that were made about staffing and services that were proposed in the budget for this year.
Thank you. Okay, further comments, questions? Potential items you want to bring forward next at the 7 p.m. meeting for discussion. Well, the discussion really should happen here for reduction or any type of editing. Councilmember Charbonneau.
Yeah, thank you. I would be interested in removing, I guess this is where I would seek guidance from staff. I would like to remove some money potentially from not the mailer portion, but the rental portion for the line items, community engagement, communications. So for the rental portion, but I wouldn't want to pigeonhole us to a point where we could not potentially pay for a rental. I'd be interested in maybe the catering aspect and the different venue. So I would love some guidance on what could be an appropriate cut there.
So I'm going to ask Don to help me a little bit. But so as far as the rental piece of that, as far as talking about town halls or adjusting how we do town halls, so we've already adjusted that down. So that's the city council rentals communications piece. So right now what we have that's two separate items. Right now we have 5,100 for postcards. And we've already reduced it down to 2,500 for any kind of rentals. And so that's already been reduced by $5,000. It was at 7,500 and it's 2,500.
And postage is increasing after the first of the year. I mean, my inclination is it really wouldn't be that major impact of a reduction. And, we know in 2023 that will bring more increases in our pricing, unfortunately. That just seems to be the nature of the beast right now. And I think we come in under, that's great. Then that's a savings. I don't see us going over that. But I think I'd rather not, wonder where we're going to get a couple thousand more or whatever if we had reduced it. So.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with you, Madam Mayor, and I share the same sentiment. I guess I would like to, I guess this is me verbally stating, I would like to, it's like the counselor side of me. This is me verbally stating I would like to continue the discussion and potentially look at reducing the cost of that. Of course, we will see when the rubber hits the road later on, but yeah, exploring those options to reduce that cost is good faith to folks that are listening as well.
Yeah, and when we go to talk about a retreat in the spring, we would have, we could have that conversation about venues or food or what, any aspect of it. Anything else? Councilmember Clark is back. Do you have anything, Councilmember Clark, for, discussion, any reductions you want to bring up at the 7 p.m. session?
He's having sound challenges, so I don't know if he can hear us. Your mic's not on.
Councilmember Clark, can you hear me? This is Mayor Newing. Can we allow him to?
Jeff, can you try chatting to him?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
He's been texting. He says he thinks it's on his end, but he can't hear us.
Oh, I see.
Can you hear us now? Can you hear us now, Rob?
Okay, well, we're trying to troubleshoot Councilmember Clark's sound issues. Are there? Okay. Are there any other comments or questions? And just to remind you, we are in an open session, so side conversations really shouldn't be going on. So, are there any other comments, questions, any other items you'd like to bring forward at 7 for our discussion? Nothing?
If not, can I speak to process a little bit?
Of course.
Like I said at the beginning, not hearing any opposition, I think everyone's on board for the REIT transfer, so changing from a transfer from the general fund to a transfer from the REIT fund. So in order to make that the new substitute budget ordinance, we need to, that'll be the first, when we get to the budget adoption item, that'll be the first thing we need to do is to amend it so that that substitute amendment is the ordinance in front of us. And then we can talk about additional amendments to the budget as needed. And so as we talk about any other amendments that are brought forward, a couple of things, and I'm going to invite Don and Paul to chime in if they think they need to, if I'm not explaining it well. So we adopt the budget by fund. So the budget ordinance that has each fund and the total expenditure. Really echoey. So the amendment to for any amendments to the budget ordinance would be by fund. So if there's an amendment to reduce the general fund, it would be, I move to amend the ordinance to reduce the general fund expenditure by X amount. While the total is what the amendment is, in order for us to produce a final budget and put it in front of the community, we still need to know the line items that make up that amount. Does that make sense? Okay. Am I explaining that well?
Any questions on that?
So we have two ordinances tonight. The second one that came in your email is the one with the REIT change. It includes all of the changes that Scott had made recommendations to, and then the discussion tonight. There's any motions to that effect, then per what Scott just said, we would make a motion to amend the budget or the ordinance by that dollar amount, like he said, knowing the line item. I caveat to that is if there's some sort of allocated expense that impacts more than one fund, I'm going to say that we don't try to adopt the budget tonight. So hopefully that if we're talking about out of a $22 million budget, we're talking $1,000 here, $1,000 there. I hope that we don't get into that discussion.
So I actually have that I will make copies of before the 7 p.m. Reconvening. The motion that needs to be presented initially when we're ready for the motion to bring the ordinance forward for discussion. Then, before any other motions are made, I'll need an amendment. And and that amendment is also on here. So I think that will be clear, but if there's any questions, please catch us before the meeting so we are clear on the process and we're not fumbling through it. Okay. Anything else?
Either now or before the regular meeting starts, if anybody has questions about the REIT transfer, please ask. I just have to apologize for going back and forth with everyone. We just wanted to, we weren't at a place last week before we needed to post that we were sure, and so we ran that down and tried to get it out to you today, so.
Well, the reductions that have been made so far are very significant. You have to remember, we started with, what was it, 1.1 million? 1.2? 1.1, a deficit. That came down a little bit to 955, and then it came down to 855. And we're now down at 545. That is significant. And I hope the council realizes that. And they understand that anything remaining as options that City Manager Pingle reviewed, the impact is not huge. It matters how aesthetic you want to get, really. And I feel like this is a good budget. So I think we'll have I hope to have a good discussion. I hope we have a very efficient discussion tonight. With that, I guess I can give you back another hour and 10 minutes. So we'll adjourn the study session.
Check, 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 check.
So my mother-in-law is not south. She projects a lot.
Right.
And I knew my father-in-law needed hearing aids.
Check, 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 check.
Virginia, so he started telling me and my wife, "Oh, Virginia, she's always mumbling." No, she's not. You need to go get those checked.
Check, 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 check.
Because
Check, 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 check. Yes. Yes, I could hear you, Rob. Just a second. I just switched something. Okay, can you go ahead?
Yeah, I can hear you, but it sounds like you're in a tunnel 100 miles away, but I can hear you.
Interesting. Speakers.
Okay. Yes. Yeah, we're testing something out. Can you hear me now?
It's about the same.
Okay. Do you hear an echo, Rob?
I do not currently hear an echo, no.
Okay. A little bit of it there. Check, 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 check. There's an echo there too.
Same, no change in volume. How do I sound? Do I sound loud enough for people to hear?
Yes. Yes. Oh, he's on the computer. No, he's the guy's camera turned off. Check one, check, check.
Yeah, no change, Jeff. Yeah, I gotta go, see to my wife, Jeff. I'm gonna sign off for a minute.
Does it louder right now?
It's louder, but there's a huge echo
Right,
everywhere.
right. That's why we turned it down to eliminate that echo. I don't know where the echo came from.
Yeah, echo, it's pretty bad echo.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, okay.
I'll get back to you, Jeff.
Okay, thanks, Rob. We've always been able to hear him. He can't hear us well. And unknown why it's doing that. This is
Worst comes to worst, we can always just.
check, 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 check. Check, 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 check.
That's good.
I don't know what this did. Check, 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 check.
Is that what we're looking for?
I don't know what this. I don't know what that is, but I don't know what the. Check, 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 check. I don't know if this, if that somehow got, if that's what all it was, and that's a piece of cake. So Zoom is still check, 6:05 p.m. Check. I'll go listen to YouTube. It's like a minute delay.
I'm a little nervous that nobody said that. You want a minute? Addicted to them. Now I got my family addicted to them.
Starburst?
Wintergreen mints.
Oh.
So I have to tell you a funny story about that. So,
Just so you know, we have 2 live mics.
that's okay, that's for everyone.
Great.
When we were at the cross country meet in Yakima, we packed lunch for our kids and stuff. And my 8-year-old had gone through everything we had, his lunch, all the snacks, like still hungry. And so we had some gum. It was just like the spearmint, Wrigley spearmint gum or something like that.
Yeah.
And he was really tired at the time. Maybe he had eaten so much food, so I don't know if he was hangry or what, but we gave him some gum. He spits it out after chewing it for a minute. He goes, "Oh, it's so minty. I don't know what else to eat." And like he was just so distraught about it. It was so funny. And so we're always saying that now. It's so minty.
That's good.
Is there any chance we could increase the heat in here just?
Oh, that I know how to do, because at the beginning of the CAC meeting, it was like a furnace in here.
I know that no one's ever as cool as Linda, but.
That appears to have solved it. I don't know why or how that got checked.
As far as the sound overall?
Yeah, it's
or
fine.
the-
Everything's
or the
fine.
echo?
No echo.
Good job, Jess.
Does
And
the
we're back. We're back up to max.
So
I
we
just
need everyone
What
to
did
talk
you do?
directly into the mics.
I turned this XLR switch off.
I better take a look at where this XLR switch is.
Just this.
Hold on. Whereabouts?
This right
It
here.
has to be clicked off or you get the echo.
Yeah, and I don't know.
That.
Yeah, and I mean, we weren't in this today until we opened it up, so I don't know how it would something like tricked it to come on.
Does it go there by default?
I don't know.
So if it's checked, no echo?
Correct. So I don't know if we had booted the system. I wonder if I'm trying to check because we've got time. Well, we booted the system. And I wonder if it comes back on as an assistant default.
This is when we need an engineer's mind because so much trial in there.
Well, and also doing it methodically, so you're only having one control at a time.
Well, and you're live. That doesn't help.
Well, yeah, but and it wasn't that it was a new problem that presented itself.
So we had the August budget retreat and we had the sound issue. We fixed the ceiling mic and everything else.
It's still not loud enough though. We just still need to. And this feedback thing actually came up before, and I solved it by hitting mute. But what we didn't realize is that was the problem for Zoom is this hitting mute right here. Why is this not coming back up? It's still booting up.
that name?
Yeah.
Holly emailed me earlier. Should we do my presentation after the meeting? I was like, no, we need the reprint.
So it's check, 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 check. So it was checked when I booted this thing back up. So.
It was checked.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So that's that.
Well, it's the kind of thing, if the screen was up, there's 2 different keypads and 2 different mice there. So it could have been accidentally turned off.
Potentially.
Um,
But it was when Kelly first started up, and she wasn't even logged in.
uh-huh. And these are the Bosch settings?
Mm-hmm.
These are Bosch, okay. None of that, though.
It wasn't even open. Unless somehow it was open last time when Dave and I were on here, but I don't think we messed with this.
Didn't you have it open earlier today?
Not when I opened it up earlier when we were trying to troubleshoot this, but
okay.
when Kelly first came in and we heard it, it was like, it was something different. It's gonna
But-
dump this into,
None of this addresses the Zoom issue, does it?
the Zoom's fine. Which one?
Can he hear us now? on
Yeah,
Zoom?
he said it here, sounds great.
Oh, he does. Was it because we had to turn it down?
Yes, to address this, right.
Okay.
We turned everything down
For the
to,
reverb.
yeah.
and the- Okay.
So we can turn it all the way back up.
It's all back up now.
Of course, you exhausted everybody.
So music can do it too then.
Yeah, so we just caused the problem. So what we did is we dialed things down until it went away, which then muted the outgoing volume. So that's what we did to mitigate the problem. We couldn't figure it out. Yeah. Check, 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 check. Yeah, that's a possible, what you just said, all of them maybe.
Thank you.
Yeah, let's see. Tomorrow, not Thursday.
Not Thursday.
Yeah, tomorrow morning, maybe in King County for the first part one.
Well, because, just to confirm that we got, make sure that we can capture a screenshot of what the way it's supposed to be, but also just to sort of accurately go through it, so we can sort of put the pieces together, because one of the reasons that I end up not being able to help in these situations is that there are too many variables. The Excel red box is one thing.
I just found that, right?
I know, right? And because there's so many variables, I'm more risk averse to trying to just clicking stuff. I just want to make sure that we both know what we think the correct settings are supposed to be at this juncture.
It's asking if we can hear him. You're muted, Councilmember Clark.
figured out?
I think so. Oh, why is that?
Your oldest? Like your oldest? I think she could be a babysitter. Yeah. She wants my oldest turned 12. Red and black. I could leave together. Yep. And then when my oldest turned 16, got the license.
Jeff, thank you for helping me out.
Mm-hmm, you're welcome.
It's a little more nerve-wracking.
You want a power bar or anything to eat?
I actually got something I didn't eat yet because this meeting time crept up on me.
Get some?
I'm fine, thanks. Why the hell is this not working?
So I was much less nervous about my oldest because I didn't do any of the driving.
Oh, right.
I'm more nervous about my second one. Than I did.
Check, 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 check.
What's better than what?
Just realize how much you do when you drive in them. It's just second nature. And
Why is this?
it's very momentum, yeah.
Hello? Like what?
I was gonna say, my 13-year-old also thinks that, but it's only because whenever.
And check, check, check. 6:17 p.m. Echo. Oh, that's coming on my phone. Where's that coming out of? Oh, the TV. Yes, we can hear you, Rob. Check, 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 check. Check, 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 check. Check, check, check. Check, 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 check. We don't. Echo, check, check, check. Unchecked. Which is what gave us the echo. Check, check, check. Check, check. Check, 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 check. Check, check.
Check, check, check.
Hey, Rob, if you can hear me, can you try a sound check, please? And you have to unmute. Thank you.
Hi, Jeff. Check, check.
Okay, we hear you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Check, 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 check. Now we're getting the echo again. Check, 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 check. Check, 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 check. Echo.
Yeah, I prefer north of South Carolina, but, Are you where in South Carolina? Oh, okay. No, I mean, I love it. My in-laws are from, Greenville.
Can you try it one more time, please, Rob?
Well, that's what I meant by
Check, Jeff, check, Jeff.
beautiful Columbia, South Carolina.
One more time?
And when I got there,
Check, check. You suddenly got a little dimmer, but I can hear you still.
Okay. Yeah, we've been able to solve the volume problem, but the echo problem is still persisting.
Okay.
so it was like one day I was in
Check. Am I echoing? Is there an echo on your end, Rob?
Ever so slight.
Yeah, ever so slight.
Yeah, not add to me, but I can hear something.
Well, if you click that off, we're going to lose. And go ahead one more time, please, Rob.
Check.
Right, it needs to be unchecked, I think.
Okay, can you hear me, Jeff? How
Yeah.
about this? Is my volume okay? What do you know?
Yes, it sounds okay.
Okay, I can hear you without a really much echo. So if you're worried about my end, that's not a problem for me. If it's something in the chamber, I can't hear it.
Yeah, it's a little bit of an echo, but it's bearable for now, I believe.
Okay.
All right, great, thank you.
Thank you.
So I got a road atlas, I took a dart, drove my back, three times, you had to have three choices. And like Florida was the first one, like, I think I was intentionally aiming for the South. Florida, South Carolina, and Georgia. Then you hit like the Pacific Ocean for a while. And so then I ended up.
Check.
Doing the Columbia, South Carolina, and as soon as you drive out of the airport, there was.
Check.
Dixie barbecue, and it had a Confederate flag the size of this room flying. And I almost asked the driver to like turn around and take me back. Take me back to there. Because I don't know if I can deal with this. Yeah. Yeah. They moved it. It wasn't right next. Well, no, it used to be up at the top of the state house with the United States flag. So they made a big stupid out of it, of course. So they're like, okay. So instead of having it right up there when you come to look for it, they brought it down right in the very front of the courthouse, of the state house. And I was like, what? Yeah, because in the flag, it was still another story. So. Yeah. But her parents and her in-laws. I mean, we'll see. Where's Columbia in relation to the That's center of the state. Charleston's on the beach. Columbia is the center of the state where her parents are.
I really was so, I didn't get it until I had a daughter, and I'm like, if somebody does this. Yeah, Climming. We call them food trips. So, but we're going there, we're gonna watch we're going to the Carolinas playing Tennessee, so it should be, it should be a good time to game will be over real quick. But it's always nice on TV. Yeah. We'll get trash can. No, South Carolina, Tennessee. He's from there. Then my in-laws, grandparents, they have a farm up there. So, what's that? Like a real farm? Yeah, I used to do this kind of farm. My father-in-law used to, like, as a kid, he would take tobacco and take it to market. They got a farm there that's got, like, some on acres now that has some, excess deer on it. They've asked my son.
I have it, I do have that, but I don't have the guts of it.
Where did you come back? East side of the mountains. Correct. Where'd you grow up? Oh, what? 2000. Oh, yeah, I graduated in 96. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like my football game, 55-0. Brutal. Our football team, terrible.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Linda Newing. I would like to call to order the Newcastle City Council meeting for Tuesday, November 15. It is 7 p.m. Earlier this evening, the City Council met and held a study session for approximately an hour. No decisions were made. We simply had some review of the preliminary budget, which is on our agenda for later this evening for discussion. With that, will you please rise and join me in the flag salute? Thank you. City Clerk White, will you please call the roll?
Deputy Mayor Sherlock.
Here.
Councilmember Griffin.
Here.
Councilmember Villasenor.
Here.
Councilmember Lacotia.
Here.
Councilmember Charbonneau.
Here.
Councilmember Clark. It's hard, okay. That's 7 present and counted for, Madam Mayor. Oh, I didn't call your name. Mayor Newing.
Here.
That's good. That is 7.
All right, thank you. And just for the record, Councilmember Clark is joining us remotely tonight. We have had some technical issues. We are hoping they are relatively resolved. They may not be perfect, but please bear with us. Those here in the chambers and also Councilmember Clark, when speaking, please speak up. Please speak directly into your microphone. We're having some trouble with the audio projecting. We don't want to, we want to make sure everybody is able to hear. Okay. With that, are there any objections to approval of tonight's agenda as presented? Hearing none, agenda is approved by consent. All right, any objection to approval of tonight? Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Public comment, I jumped down my agenda too far. Public comment, do we have any signed up for public comment? City Clerk White, thank you so much. And we'll do those who are here in person first and then ask our remote audience if there are any who would like to speak. All right, Jason Hauk, I have you listed first. Oh boy, I don't know, he's smiling, so you'll have 3 minutes. Please state your name and organization or neighborhood you are reside in. I think you're a dead giveaway.
My 3 minutes is, I don't want to go over. Jason Hauk, I work for the police department here, and I kind of in everybody's neighborhood at some point during the day, usually. Few meetings ago, Councilmember Clark and I had a lively discussion about homeless stuff, and some people were concerned, I think, asked me about that, and it was sort of clear that maybe he and I didn't see eye to eye on a few things, but I wanted to bring to light that, bring it up that on last Friday, Councilmember Clark put together what I considered was a great event for the city with the Veterans Day thing out at the flagpole there, and that's definitely something he and I can agree with 100% on, and I thank him very much for allowing the police department to be there and be involved in that. And people were thanking me, and I hope that they realize that I wasn't doing anything but just showing up and handing out flags, and that Councilmember Clark did that, and I appreciate him for doing that, and Councilmember Griffin for his service. So that's it.
Thank you, Chief Hauk. All right, Jeff Newing.
Good evening, Jeff Newing, Terry Meadows. My comments are from attending the Volunteer Appreciation event held November 8th. These comments are minor known and not influenced by any member or council member here tonight. I want to thank the city for hosting a wonderful volunteer appreciation event. It was nice to talk to many of the city volunteers. Getting to know why they volunteered showed the deep commitment they have for the city. Several were wondering why all the city council members were not in attendance. My comment was, you need to ask them directly. They thought it would have been a great opportunity to meet the volunteers and to get to know their story. I'd like to thank Councilmember Charbonneau, Villasenor, and Mayor Newing for their continued support of these important events. A former council member told me, it's more than sitting in council meetings. You need to show the residents you're part of the community by attending city events. To do that, you need to make sure you have a good vacation bank if you need to take time off work. Thank you.
All right, do we have any virtual attendee? We do not. Okay, with that, I will close the public comment. We have no presentations this evening. Council comment. Councilmember Clark, I'm going to let you lead us off tonight.
Thank you, Mayor Newing. Oh,
Councilmember Clark.
okay.
Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we
Okay,
can hear
great.
you.
Do it.
Thank you.
I appreciate the accommodation for me being absent tonight and being on Zoom. I appreciate it. Appreciate the effort that made that happen. I just want to shout back at Chief Hauk, and I want to thank him as well for being at the Veterans Day service. It was a great attendance. I really had no idea how many people would show up. We had about 25 people, so it's a good first start, and hopefully next year we can increase it. The chief was gracious enough to hand out new American flags to veterans and active duty members there. Really appreciate it. Appreciate Councilmember Griffin and then Matt Scaly, who showed up with his family, and he helped raise the flag, raise and lower the flag. So great attendance, great participation. I hope we can expand on that next year. I really would like to do that. And I was unable, unfortunately, to hear the study session comments. My audio issues apparently were the culprit. So we seem to have that resolved. And later on during the budget discussion, it will not be my intention to repeat things you already said because I simply don't know what you said. So just fair warning on that. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Clark. And just so you know, I can see the panel, so if you want to, when we get to general business, if you want to speak, just raise your hand and we're monitoring it, and Deputy Mayor Sherlock is helping me do that tonight. Thank you. All right, Councilmember Charbonneau, what do you have for us?
Thank you, Mayor. Had a great time at the volunteer appreciation event. Thank you to folks that came out. I learned a lot. Thank you to Kai Dalton for talking my ear off about the Historical Society. Appreciated that as well. I was happy to attend the Arts Council Executive Board meeting last night and get to talk with them a little bit. And then the last thing I had was I was encouraging folks to vote a lot. We had 64.27% voter turnout in Newcastle this year. Would love to beat that in 2024 and hope we can keep folks engaged and dropping off ballots right here at City Hall.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Lakota.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, I want to congratulate everyone on the successful Veterans Day event. I did hear and did see some pictures, and it was a great event. Thank you, Councilmember Clark, for your leadership here and and pulling this event. And we had our study session. We discussed a few things, and you will, as we will discuss more on the budget, you will see some changes that we were able to make successfully. We were showing, 856,000 in deficit. Now it has come down by 300,000+. Thank you to Councilmember Griffin for thinking creatively and coming up with this idea. And I'm glad that this council has leveraged his skills. A CPA, a practicing CPA of 50+ years experience. And, he has many more ideas. I hope we could adopt all of those, but I'm glad that we were able to at least accept the one that he recommended and trying to, make the budget look more efficient. So thank you for that.
All right, Councilmember Villasenor, go ahead, please.
Good evening. As this is our last meeting before Thanksgiving, I just wanted to say my thankful parts. And I'm just thankful for the part I get to play on this council, as it gives me an opportunity to deepen my relationship with this amazing community that I've been part of for 17 years. So I would like to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving, and until we see you again.
Thank you. Councilmember Griffin, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mayor Nguyen. I want to take this time to tell Rob that he had such a great turnout for Friday for the veterans. We had 25 in attendance, and I want to thank Chief Houck for his participation in passing out flags. So it was a great event. Thank you very much.
Deputy Mayor Sherlock.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll echo a happy Thanksgiving to everybody, and happy birthday to my daughter tomorrow. And it was very sad that I wasn't able to attend the volunteer event, but I was actually at another volunteer board meeting that I was at. But thank you to all the volunteers. We really just appreciate what this community gives back. So thank you.
All right, thank you. And moving on to reports, my report, a couple of things. I was really taken back. I really was disappointed I couldn't attend the Veterans Day celebration that Councilmember Clark hosted, and I thank you for doing that. I mean, veterans are very near and dear to my heart too. They're in my family as well. But I had another commitment that I could not get out of. And I hope this is an ongoing tradition here in our community. I think it was great, innovative work on your part, so thank you. Economic Development Committee. So I did receive some indication from some council members. They would like to serve on this committee. And with that, I would like to make the appointment to that committee of Councilmember Charbonneau, Councilmember Griffin, and Deputy Mayor Sherlock. If any of you have changed your mind or do not want to serve in that capacity, please let me know, but that is my intent right now. Also, as we approach year end, this is an opportunity if you are interested in stepping away from a committee assignment, please email me no later than, let's say, Friday of this week, which makes it, I believe, November 18 already. And that way I can get that addressed. And, yeah, you know, if somebody else, if you desire something on another committee, but there's no vacancies, I can't change that because these are 2-year appointments, really. But it's just an opportunity if your schedule has changed. I know mine certainly has outside of council, and but I wanted to offer that opportunity to the council members. Other than that, that's all I have, and thank you for your thankfulness to serve Councilmember Villasenor. It's definitely a pleasure working with you. I appreciate that. And I will turn it over to council committees. While I have the mic, I will just mention that Salary and Benefits Committee met November 2nd. And we are recommending that one item comes before council, and that will be presented at the December 6th meeting. So you will see that an item from Salary and Benefits Committee recommending it be discussed here on the floor with all of the council. And that was really the only item on our agenda. So regional committees, any regional committee attendees? Councilmember Clark, you're good? Okay. All right, seeing none, that was easy. Community Activities Commission report is in your packet. City Manager Pingle, what do you have for us?
Just a couple things, Madam Mayor, thank you, and good evening again, Council. First of all, something that didn't make our list of upcoming events is the 10th anniversary of the Newcastle Library. The celebration will be held on December 10th for the Newcastle Library 10th anniversary. It'll be at the library at 9:30 a.m. Celebrating when the Newcastle Library first opened. That'll be, the announcement will be on the website, and it's already, I believe, been pushed out on social media as far as the announcement and the activities. So stay tuned for that. The only other item I have is that we'd like to provide an update on ARPA funds as well as the restaurant relief, and I'm going to hand that over to our Community Development Director, Mark Hoffman.
Thank you, City Manager and Mayor and Council. Mark Hoffman, Community Development Director, City of Newcastle. I prepared 2 written updates that are fairly detailed that we plan to include in Friday's City Manager update to the Council. I can provide a brief version of those verbally for you tonight so you can get the update itself at this meeting and for the record and those that may be viewing. The 2 items are, first, the King County one-time COVID unmet needs grant the city received. And then, as City Manager mentioned, the second is the Business and Nonprofit Organization Relief and Recovery Grant Program. The first one's fairly straightforward. The city received and agreed to accept King County one-time funding totaling $25,000 to support Newcastle's COVID-19 relief and recovery efforts. This one-time funding was included in a King County ordinance and put in place by Councilmember Regan Dunn of District 9. So thank you, Councilmember Dunn and King County Council. A subsequent letter of agreement dated October 6th of this year from the county was approved by the city. And the one-time relief funds shall be utilized by the end of the agreement, December 31st, 2022. The $25,000 in relief funds is earmarked for relief and recovery of local Newcastle restaurants in existence and negatively impacted by the pandemic. The agreement includes a required narrative report due in January of 2023. The current activities on this grant program are that staff prepared a preliminary list of existing eligible restaurants in the city. We are also crafting an application, required criteria consistent with the agreement. We intend to do a door-to-door, business-to-business outreach program that will have benefits down the road for economic development and encourage those on the eligible list to apply. We will review those. My hope is that that's somewhere just after, probably the first holiday of the season, and we intend to award and distribute the funds in December. That's the easier of the 2. The other one's a little bit more wordy. At the last meeting, the council requested this specific update for the ARPA funds. So the update I provided gives the history back to April forward and each step and each ordinance so that there's a timeline if anyone has any questions. The basic update verbally tonight is to take it from November and update you on what we're doing now. So you get the detail in the written response relatively soon. The key is on October 4th, the council approved an implementation action plan with 4 items. The one specific to this update is the small business and nonprofit organization relief in the amount of $400,000. The intent is to distribute that as quickly as possible, get it in the hands of those in need. The description in the implementation plan included partnering with Working Washington 5, being administered and distributed by One East Side on behalf of the Department of Commerce. One of the first things we did in October was collaborate and discuss that potential with staff members from One East Side and quickly found out that Working Washington 5 deadline for applications was September 30th, had passed. There was no opportunity to reopen it and partner and add funds. They were already reviewing and ranking and preparing the award. Those emails went out as late as the end of October and are occurring right now. So the description and task as written in the implementation plan can't occur, but the purpose, intent, and program can. And the way it can, and what we proposed, is to switch to an in-house effort to distribute those funds with the same purpose, same intent, and the same speed. It takes a variety of steps to do so, and we already have those underway. The key is to have those accurate and complete as possible before we start. Those steps are a webpage specific to this program on the city's website, which is being prepared in draft form. It's not visible at this point to the public. That includes an application that mirrors Working Washington 5 and some other programs that distributed small business ARPA funds, with the idea being to simplify and clarify the process to the greatest extent we can, because reporting will come at the end. We want to stick with the criteria before we apply or review the applications. That leads to an outreach and informational effort, business to business. We're a small city. We're going to hit the bricks and get out there and get the information out. We don't have a determined application window yet. It'll be significant enough that people have time to prepare an application and get it in and be aware, but short enough that we can stick to distribution in a short amount of time. We will score or rank and review for qualifications any applications submitted. They will be eligible for a portion of the $400,000. I imagine at this point in draft form, 2,000 to 5,000 is a guesstimate of the median award, but upwards of 10 or 15 could be one of the criteria. The idea being distribute the benefit and to the greatest extent we can that still has efficacy. And we're not sure of the total number of applications yet, but we will have a better idea of the awards. Once we get those, we'll put it in spreadsheet form and form a recommendation and give that recommendation to city manager for consideration and assurance that it meets the criteria of the implementation plan city council put in place. So those are the steps we're currently doing at staff level. The effort itself is designed to run from September 2022 to December 2023. Because of the urgency, we're front loading it through this holiday season. We don't want to take any shortcuts. We want to get it right. We want it to be clear. We want the reporting to be there. We want it to be a success. But the urgency could mean that the funds get into the hands of the businesses and nonprofits as soon as December, January, February, in that time frame. Again, both these updates are verbose, and we'll provide them to you on Friday, but we're available for any questions you might have tonight.
Thank you, Director Hoffman. Congratulations on moving that forward, quickly, because I feel like businesses are in need, and I really appreciate it. Any questions? You want to wait until you get your final? Go ahead, Councilmember.
Thank you. I'm just curious, Director Hoffman, and I'm not sure if you've, I think there are, I was curious if we were reaching out to or leaning on some of the existing agencies out there that could help with something like this. I'm thinking perhaps, Port of Seattle, Washington Department of Commerce, God, what's the other one? King County has a somewhat robust economic development department as well too. I was just curious if we were reaching out to those sort of entities to hopefully, take some lift off of your end if we are moving to this in-house model.
Thank you, Council Member. The short answer is yes, we are. Right after we discussed the lack of potential with Working Washington 5, We discussed our program with Department of Commerce staff with that very question. Are there any programs? Is there going to be a Working Washington 6? Is there anything within our time frame? And the answer is generally no. There was some input about a revolving fund discussion that was never solidified during the guidance period and is not being pursued at this point. But there's no grant program we can tailor it with. Given, the second part of the answer is given the timeliness, in the words of beneficial expediency, to honor that, the in-house effort involves a lot of work with existing staff, but we have experience in it. And to honor the expediency and the benefit of that, pivoting to an in-house effort as opposed to contracting out with a chamber or another organization is the way to go. The other variable is the holidays. Contracting is not quick. Everyone's busy. So in that sense, it's of time importance to distribute this funds as opposed to solely worry about the overall workload as we're starting a comprehensive plan update. It's easier to just pivot right to the effort and get going.
All right, thank you for putting that together. And we look forward to getting the more detailed version on Friday. And there will probably be more questions that'll be sent, to you and City Manager Pingle. So thank you. Okay, moving on. Consent agenda. Is there any objection to approval of tonight's unanimous consent agenda as presented? Seeing none, we'll consider it approved. Moving on to item number public. We have no public hearings tonight. We have no unfinished business. We have our legislative lobbyist in the audience, Holly Kochi. And that brings us to item 11.1, adoption of resolution 2022-917, City Council 2023 legislative agenda. I'll turn it over to City Manager Pingle first.
Thank you, Mayor. Just briefly, before I turn it over to Holly, Holly came to just provide a brief kind of insight into the upcoming legislative session, just kind of to provide some context and insight as we discuss the legislative agenda. I'll turn it over to her.
Okay, can everyone hear me okay? Okay. Good evening, Council. Thank you for the introduction, Scott. And again, I am Holly Kochi. I have the privilege of serving as the city's state lobbyist and being your eyes, ears, and voice in Olympia. So thank you for taking the time to hear from me this evening. Typically, I provide a presentation and walk through each legislative agenda item in detail that the city has listed on their agenda. But in the interest of time, and since you all have reviewed the proposed legislative agenda before you, I plan to focus my update on a reminder of the legislative process and what we expect to arise this upcoming 2023 session. That way you all have some context going into the final consideration of the legislative agenda before you all this evening. So, starting with what we can expect during the 2023 session, you'll recall that the legislature operates on a 2-year cycle, and 2023 will mark the beginning of the 2023-25 biennium. It is the first year of the biennium, meaning it will be a long session, beginning on January 9th and lasting 105 consecutive days. During a long session, the legislature has 2 primary tasks. The first is to develop and adopt operating, capital, and transportation budgets for the 2023-25 biennium. As a reminder, the operating budget is what funds the operations for state agencies, including the K-12 education system. The next state budget forecast will be released in a few days here. I think it's November 18th. And the governor's budget proposals will be developed based on those numbers and will be released in mid-December is usually when it occurs. Overall, we expect a robust operating budget, but anticipate the legislature will want to be cautious about new spending. The capital budget is what funds brick and mortar construction of state facilities that are not transportation related. It is funded primarily through the sale of bonds, and the size is relative to the size of the operating budget. This is the budget the city received both the Lake Bourne Park, dock, and cemetery funds from, and the budget that we would, the request that we have for the cross town trail priority before you all would also be would fall within that capital budget request. The transportation budget funds the construction and operation of the state's transportation system, and historically it has been primarily funded with gas tax revenues, but the recent passage of the Climate Commitment Act or the Cap and Invest program has created a new revenue stream for investment in projects or programs that reduce carbon emissions. The agenda before you includes a funding request to complete the pedestrian improvements along May Creek Park Drive. Although we aren't anticipating the legislature to fund any additional transportation projects this session, there may be available Climate Commitment Act dollars that could provide us an opportunity for the city's project to be considered. But nonetheless, in either way, it is important to share the city's transportation needs with the delegation and continue to do so until it's fully funded. Transportation budget writers will also be focused on providing guidance for the implementation of the Move Ahead Washington package and all that entails as well, which passed last session. In addition to the budgets, the legislature will devote much of their time considering and adopting policy bills. Traditionally, we see a few thousand bills introduced and about 300 to 400 bills that actually make it through the legislative process and are signed into law by the governor. I'll just quickly share a few updates that pertain to the policy priorities that we expect the legislature will have robust discussions around and that are listed on the agenda before you. In regard to public safety, I think you are all aware that in 2021, the Supreme Court's invalidated the statute that made possession of a controlled substance a felony. In response to that decision, the legislature enacted a temporary policy that has made the possession of controlled substances a misdemeanor until July 1 of 2023. Given that near expiration, we expect the issue to be at the forefront this session. The other issue we expect to arise is the vehicular pursuits. In 2021, the legislature changed the standard for vehicular pursuits from reasonable suspicion to probable cause. Although a bill was introduced last session, the two chambers could not agree on a legal standard to authorize pursuits. So hopefully the legislature can pick up where they left off and actually pass a bill this year. The other policy topic I'll just highlight is in relation to the statement of the city's proposed agenda that's around affordable housing. This specific statement was developed by Arch and is a request for local option funding mechanisms, one idea being a new local option REIT dedicated to affordable housing. I'll also just note AWC, Association of Washington Cities, organized a housing solutions group made up of a variety of city staff and local elected officials from around the state to hone in on a city-led effort for the 2023 session. They have just wrapped up that group discussion and should be releasing a housing policy type package that we can all view, and you can all share your perspectives, and we can start just having that dialogue with more of our legislative delegation, but as well as other legislators that will be involved. So definitely more to come on this issue. We expect it that policy package from AWC to come out here in the next couple of weeks. So I'll begin communicating with city staff, Scott, and draft proposals will begin to circulate, and we can all discuss that. So we knew the outcome of the November elections would determine the political split of both chambers. There were over 25 legislators who chose not to seek re-election for the positions they are currently holding. Although there are still ballots to be counted across the state, Democrats will be maintaining the majority in both chambers. And coming up in the next couple of weeks, each caucus will select their leadership, and the majority party from each chamber will determine the chairs and structure of each legislative committee. So hopefully that provides you with some context of what we expect during the 2023 session and how the legislative priorities before you this evening kind of fit into that. The legislature will convene for committee days, November 30th through December 2nd, which is really the start of their policy discussions and their legislative work. And bills will begin being pre-filed as early as early December. After the city's legislative agenda is approved and finalized, Mayor Newing, Mr. Pingle, and I will be meeting with the 41st legislators to brief them on the city's priorities and how we can all work together to accomplish mutual interests and goals. So, and before you know it, it's January 9th, and you can find me in the halls of the Capitol basically at any hours of the day. So, but looking forward to it and happy to stick around while you guys all discuss the agenda.
Thank you, Ms. Kochi. Any questions for City Manager Pingle or Ms. Kochi on this topic? Any motions? Oh, Councilmember Charbonneau, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Ms. Kochi. I was curious, so you're talking about the Climate Commitment Act, and we're also talking about this transportation bucket. Now, we're asking, for May Creek Park specifically, we're asking for multimodal, right? So pedestrian, bicycle access. What is, how strict are the requirements for us to qualify for something that would be eligible for that
For the
revenue?
climate.
So I
Yeah.
know it's a wordy question.
So it really depends. So I think the forecast will give them an idea of how much of those Climate Commitment Act dollars they were expecting to come in and how much wasn't. And they are anticipating that there is going to be a bit more than they were expecting. Now, the Climate Commitment Act dollars have been dedicated strictly to multimodal transit, getting people off the roads and out of their vehicles. So there isn't they can change that criteria at any point, and they could share during session that they are looking for these types of projects, and we may not fit into that, or we may. So it's really just, we have it on our agenda because it is a priority for the city, regardless of whether it fits within that category. So it's really just a matter of what they decide when we come to January 9th. So, yeah. Let me know if you
No, I appreciate it.
have any other follow-ups on that.
Any motions? Councilmember Villasenor, go ahead, please.
Yes, I move adoption of Resolution 2022-917, City Council 2023 Legislative Agenda as presented.
There's a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Villasenor, seconded by Councilmember Charbonneau to adopt Resolution 2022-917, City Council 2023 Legislative Agenda as presented. Lots of numbers in that motion. Councilmember Villasenor, would you like to speak to your motion, please?
No, I'd like to thank Ms. Kochi for her work and her efforts and for coming out tonight and giving us all those details. Thank you.
Councilmember Charbonneau, anything to add?
Not too much. I had the opportunity to sit down with Ms. Kochi in the past, and I think the work we're doing here is really critical. I think we had good input from different community levers, and we're moving very much towards more of a culture of asking and pursuing a lot of these opportunities, which I think is really healthy and really great.
All right. So the motion on the floor is to adopt Resolution 2022-917, City Council 2023 Legislative Agenda as presented. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Ms. Kochi, thank you so much. I'll see you Monday, and of course, we look forward to your legislative updates.
Yes, and I'll be sending reports frequently, and you'll probably be hearing from me more than you want to. But feel free to reach out at any point. You know, obviously, I speak with Mr. Pingle probably more than he would like to, but feel free to reach out to me individually at any point. I'm always here, so thank you so much.
Thank you for your efforts this session. All right, now we are on to, I guess, the main event of the evening. Adoption of ordinance 2022-649, final 2023 budget. City Manager Pingle, Director Palmer, it's all your show.
Thank you. Tonight, we have a budget that's before you. The revenue is $22,707,960. The expenses is $23,988,490. There's an ordinance that has been amended tonight from the original packet. It's an inclusion of REIT money transfer from the REIT fund to the street fund. It's a sunset because of the statute of December 31st, 2023, so it'd be a one-year standalone. And that transfer is about $313,000 going from REIT to street. And what that does is it lowers the transfer from general fund to street for that 1 year. And that impact was a change going from $840,000 in the hole to $540,000 gap. So council received that information tonight via email. We've had a discussion about some other changes that were included in the budget prior to this change, and those were included in these numbers. And then tonight at the workshop, we had some other discussion. And from that, I guess I'll turn it over to City Council for further discussion and deliberation.
Thank you, Director Palmer. So what I'm looking for as a reminder is a motion to enter the original proposed ordinance, which we would need to amend to replace that with the substitute ordinance amendment, or amend that to present the substitute ordinance, the second one that was sent out late today. And to that ordinance, if council has any amendments, they would be made to that second ordinance.
Correct.
Thank you. Okay, our Deputy Mayor Sherlock, go ahead, please.
All right, I'll get this party started. I move to adopt ordinance 2022-649 as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Deputy Mayor Sherlock, seconded by Councilmember Villaseñor to adopt ordinance 2022-649 as presented. Councilmember Griffin, go ahead, please.
I have an amendment, a motion to amend ordinance 2022-649 by substituting the version that includes REIT funding for the street fund in 2023.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Griffin, seconded by Councilmember Lacotia to amend ordinance 2022-649 by substituting the version that includes REIT funding for the street fund in 2023. Councilmember Griffin, anything to speak to on that?
No, I think it's pretty well stands alone on itself.
Councilmember Lacotia, anything to add? All right, thank you. Okay, there's an amendment on the floor. So the motion is to amend ordinance 2022-649 by substituting the version that includes REIT funding for the street fund in 2023. I'm sorry, Councilmember Clark, I missed your hand. It was kind of hidden by shadows.
I'd like to amend the amendment on the floor.
I need to, the Councilmember Clark, we need to.
Yeah.
We need to vote on that. No, we don't? Okay.
The council member is offering an amendment to the substitute, I believe.
I see. Okay.
If you want to make the amendment, then we have to just determine that now before we vote on the substitute. Council member.
Okay. Thank you. Madam Mayor, I move to amend the amendment for ordinance 2022-649 to limit total staff pay to a 3% increase rather than the budget 7% increase.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Clark, seconded by Councilmember Lakotia, to limit the staff increase to 3%. Okay, I just wanted to make sure, to limit the staff increase by, to 3%. Councilmember Clark, would you like to speak to your amendment, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So, right now, you know, our city and our citizens that we work for, the people of Newcastle, are of course experiencing a lot of inflation. They're experiencing a lot of tough times. Nobody in the city that I know of, my neighbors, nobody that I've talked with is getting this kind of a raise. You know, everybody's struggling. There's a lot of people, in fact, who don't even have jobs right now because of the economy, and things are only going to get more difficult. So it was said in our last meeting, and it was a really appropriate statement for this moment, but we are all in the same boat. And I would agree in this case that we all are in the same boat. So it would be hard for me to go out to the citizens of the city, my neighbors and friends and people around the community, and say, well, we raised your property taxes so we could give the staff a 7% raise. And that's really, it equals out, essentially, if that's what's going on. Now, I understand that the property tax raise goes into the general fund and it can be used for anything, but essentially, we're talking about the same amount of money. So this is not anything personal against the staff, right? Let me get that clear right up front, right? The staff is great. They've been very helpful to me. I appreciate it. Tonight, me being on Zoom is a perfect example. But I work for the people of the city and not the staff. And I want to make sure that, you know, we are treating our citizens, our employers, fairly by not, you know, spending their money on things that they also do not benefit from. So when I yield the floor here, I know there's going to be several comments in response to what I have to say. So I'll address them right now, ahead of time. So let me be clear again, this is not a personal attack on the staff or a lack of appreciation for the staff. This is just me trying to save money for our citizens. So we might hear somebody say, well, we have to give the staff money because they work hard. And I can't dispute that, right? They do work hard. My neighbors work hard too, plumbers, bus drivers, right? Working hard is a basic job requirement for anybody in any industry. So we might also hear that, you know, well, we've always given the staff a 7% raise. Well, you know, that doesn't mean we continue to do something we've always done. If you continue to hit your head, which you keep doing it, right? So we might also hear somebody will say, well, other cities are doing it, right? Other cities, we got to do it because other cities are doing it. Well, you know, what if the other cities, you know, bought 52 vehicles and painted them pink? Would we do that? You know, we have to figure out what's best for Newcastle, not what's best for other cities. We might also hear somebody say, well, if we don't pay them, they'll leave. That's true, right? That's life. That's called life, right? You go to a job, you get some experiences, you reach your ceiling, your potential, and you move on. That's how it works in any industry, in any business, and it should work that way in government. So while we pay our employees a fair wage, right, we're not going to continue to pay them forever and ever and ever to an infinite ceiling. We'll also probably hear somebody say, well, if we don't pay the staff, they'll take all their experience away and the citizens will suffer for that. Well, we had a city manager here for, I don't know how many years, the previous city manager was here, a long time. And we've had a new city manager for only a couple of months, and we haven't missed a beat. We've actually improved, right? So that argument about taking the experience away is not a valid one. We will also hear, and there's other examples. We have a new community development director, and he seems like he's going to do a fine job. We'll also hear maybe somebody will say, well, inflation is so high, you know, they got to have a living wage. Well, inflation is a result of who you voted for, and sorry, you know, I mean, that could be fixed easily. So it's not our job to compete with other cities and do what they do. It's our job to be responsible with the money that the people of this city entrust us to take care of. So this is not a personal attack on the staff, right? I want to hear that, right? This is just me trying to look out for the people who voted for me, and I recommend that we reduce the staff to a 3% total increase, which is in line with all industries out there. Everybody out in the community works in private business. If they're lucky, they're going to get 3%. So this is just matching and putting everybody in the same boat. Thank you.
Councilmember Lacotia, you seconded the motion. Would you like, or the amendment, would you like to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, adding to, you know, Councilmember Clark said it well, but adding to that, as he said, we are just limiting it to 3%. We're not saying 0%, we're limiting it to 3%, and 3% is an industry norm. Last few days, we've been hearing in the news, there has been a total of 25,000 layoffs from tech. You know, we'll be in denial that no, there is no recession, there's no inflation, we can be in denial all day. Microsoft is next. Microsoft already laid off 1,000. They're going to have another 10,000 coming up. T-Mobile is going through a third round of layoff. My friend was impacted, so there is a lot of, this is not the first round, second round, there's a third round that is happening at T-Mobile. What about those people? There are a lot of those, citizens who live in Newcastle. So we are seeing this phenomena in happening. We are in recession. We are going to be deeper in recession Q1. The top CEOs of the country, 86% CEOs of the country have said that, and we've already started seeing the results of it. The budget still has a deficit. We haven't come out of the deficit in our budget. You know, we are taking pride in, oh, you know what? We started with 1.1 million deficit, and look, today we are at 544,000. What does that say? As a finance professional, what does that tell me? It tells me that there was room in the budget. We were able to reduce it by half. So there is more opportunity. If we were able to reduce it by half in the last few meetings, think about we have more opportunity. The budget is not balanced yet. Last time we had a speaker, very successful in his own career, Mr. Steve Gula, who came, and what really caught me, and I know another speaker, Len, who is sitting here, also repeated what Steve Gula said. He said, what we need is structure and discipline. And that is what we need in our budget. We need structure and discipline. We need structure and discipline in our expenses. So, we've come this far. It's time that we leverage the skills of this council. We already saw, our practicing council member, CPA, he was a CPA practicing, and he has come up with so many times, he has come up with ideas how to balance the budget, but no, we don't want to listen to that. I want to thank you to, say thank you to many of our citizens who wrote to us. They wrote to us even during when we passed the property taxes. They again wrote to us, and they sent us some recommendation, and I looked at it, and those are very good recommendations that they have made. They are very, very logical, very viable. I mean, those are really good recommendations that they are coming up with. And they are asking us, please balance the budget. Please live within your means. So that is all we are trying to do here. We are just trying to live within our means during these tough times. And yes, I do represent the citizens. And for me and for all of us, it should be citizens first. We need to think about them first. And they are the ones who are suffering. They are the ones who are paying us the taxes. So let's use their money judiciously. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Councilmember Villasenor, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I disagree that our citizens don't benefit from having a talented and experienced staff. I mean, I think that we are in competition with other cities, and that's also for talent. That's not. We're not alone here. We have, we are surrounded by larger cities, likely deeper pockets, and I don't believe that we're paying well and above what the market demands of us. But we're also trying to attract the best talent, and to essentially cut the legs out of our ability to recruit, I don't think is a good idea. You talk about our pay ranges. We have a salary and benefits committee. Trees don't grow to the sky. I mean, regardless of how long you're in position, you can't go out of your salary range. It's set and it's published. So, I'm going to disagree with you on this one, Councilmember Clark. I think that our staff is valued. I think we need to show them that they're valued. And I don't want to make this restriction.
Councilmember Charbonneau.
Thank you. So yeah, there's a lot to talk about, I think, and essentially respond to here. One, I think, there was an amendment brought up earlier talking about, in the past meeting, talking about the idea of we don't want to, spend $0 on consultants in total. And I was very strongly against that because I don't think a blanket legislation that really hinders what our staff can do and limits them is what benefits them most, right? We approve every single consultant in an agenda for a meeting. We approve every single one of those contracts. We approve them separately. And this is true for this as well, too. We have a salary and benefits committee. We have a means to meet and go about this. Now, my colleagues talked about inflation a lot. If inflation is rising, you need a tool to address the salary of a staff member, because if you're not adjusting their salary for inflation, you're effectively giving them a pay cut. And if we want to look at keeping our staff, which will save us more money in the long run, we had one of the most amount ever spent for our city manager line item this year. It's because we had turnover. And keeping that and keeping those people, we need to look at other cities. We need to look at what is competitive. You can't, remove yourself from the number and the value you're putting on that position and say it's not anything personal. It's intrinsically personal. And we talk about this idea of working for the people. I believe by keeping these staff members, we are working for the people by allowing the flexibility, again, that we still approve at a later date of different raises and not capping it at a specific number with blanket legislation. We're working for the people because that gives us more flexibility in recruiting and maintaining staff. I think keeping the staff we have is really critical in serving those people, because 49.4%, this is some community survey information, of those people want more events. So we brought on an event staff member. I, was pretty shocked when I saw that, we had a staff member that does communications sort of described to me by the public as a social media manager, which is a really gross misrepresentation, and that person does a lot more than that. And that was one of the 47.6% of Newcastle residents. Only 47.6% said they were satisfied with the info they got from the city. They were satisfied with the info about activities. They were satisfied with the info about services, less than half. And we look at, how many people love our trails, which is an overwhelming majority. The trails folks, the Newcastle Trails folks, needed support from the parks planner who we brought on, who brought in a $500,000 grant very quickly, and who we've already filled for that position again. So the realities of those 3 staff member examples I just listed out, which I've been frankly told that we need to cut, we need to look at other things. I know we're talking about the, raise percentage right now. You don't get those people if you limit their flexibility and the amount they can grow in a position. I had to make choices myself as a young professional on how, what jobs I wanted to do versus what jobs I could do based on what is offered to you. And I think there's, turnover is going to cost us more in efficiency. It's going to cost us more in money. we can talk about other industries all we want. This is, government is its own thing. We have to provide a service for people that we're not going to expect a profit for. We have to go out and keep people safe. We have to go and provide a large litany of things. And having a shortfall projected here is not something that is unique to Newcastle too. I feel really important to say there's so many cities are looking at this in the state of Washington long term, of everywhere from Seattle to Bellevue to Bothell to other small cities, you name it, are looking at these long-term numbers similar to what we are. And I think we have a very conscious choice of, do we want to leave our city managers, do we want to leave our city with bare bones staff and not any tools to address these things along the way? Or in that process, do we want to maintain a high quality of life and support the people to try to solve those problems together?
Okay, Councilmember Griffin, then we'll go for a vote.
Thank you, Mayor Dewing. We can't compare ourselves to Bellevue, Renton, Seattle, Issaquah. We're a city of 4.5 square miles with 13,400 citizens. So we don't have any Costco's, we don't have any big industries in our city. We don't have any anything really. Our main tax things are the real estate tax, sales tax, and we depend heavily on development fees. Development fees are going to be going away pretty soon because we don't have anything left to develop much. So we need to remember where we are, and as a council, what we need to do in order to make the city stay alive and be healthy. And we can't do that by having a budget that has a deficit of $500,000 or $600,000. It started out at 1.1 million, and we got it down to 5.44 or 440 or something like that. But that's not saying what we need to do. We need to get the budget down to where it's more or less a balance. So I think that as a council member, all of us should have that same goal, is to make the city healthy. Thank you.
Okay, there's an amendment on the floor to the amended ordinance. And the amendment we're voting on is to limit staff increases to 3%. The amendment was made by Councilmember Clark and seconded by Councilmember Lakotia. All in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Motion or amendment fails 3-4 with Councilmember Clark, Griffin, and Lakotia voting in the affirmative. Okay, back to the main amendment on the floor, which is to amend ordinance 2022-649 by substituting the version that includes REIT funding for the street fund in 2023. All in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Yeah, so now that's the ordinance that's under consideration now.
To double check. Okay, now the main ordinance under consideration is ordinance 2022-649 as amended, which would substitute the REIT funding for the street fund in 2023. Any further discussion? Okay, so there's still a motion on the floor with this, right? Okay, all right. We're voting in favor of the ordinance 2022-649. Please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Councilmember Clark, okay, thank you. Motion carries 4-3 with Councilmember Clark, Lakotia, and Griffin dissenting. That's our budget, right? Folks, we have a budget. Congratulations. Okay, moving on after I find my agenda. Caveats to everything, right? All right, additional public comments. So we're at item 12. Are there members in attendance who would like to speak? All right, seeing none. Director Bronze, do we have any virtuals? All right, no public comment. I'll close the public comment. Planning calendar. One thing I would like to ask for, and City Manager Pingle and I talked about this earlier this afternoon. I'm looking for a motion to cancel the December 20th council meeting. Deputy Mayor Sherlock.
I would like to move to cancel the December 20th council meeting.
Is there a second? All right. Motion to cancel the December 20th council meeting made by Deputy Mayor Sherlock, seconded by Councilmember Lakotia. Deputy Mayor, anything to state?
Just for the public, we typically cancel this meeting unless we're still working on budget. And since we just passed the budget, I don't think we need to spend the few days before Christmas in this room.
Councilmember Lakotia, anything to add? Thank you. Councilmember Charbonneau, I saw you pop your hand up.
Oh, I just wanted to know the reasoning, but yeah, maybe.
It's called Happy Holidays. All right. Motion on the floor to cancel the December 20th council meeting. All in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, people. All righty. City Manager Pingle. Planning calendar, go ahead.
Just a couple of things that will now be added to the December 6th meeting. In order to make effective, as we discussed in the budget workshop, the REIT transfer to the street fund, we'll have a code amendment for the council that will need to be adopted in order to make that possible for us. As we discussed, and for any of those that didn't hear the budget workshop, the RCW for REIT essentially has broadens the allowed uses for REIT through December 31st, 2023. What limits us in taking advantage of that, and kind of what the challenge in making that REIT transfer to the street fund instead of the general fund, was our own code that specifies that REIT has to be used to finance capital projects. And so we'll have to add a caveat to that, something to the effect as of or otherwise allowed by law, just so that we have the leeway to follow what the state allows us to do. And so that'll be the effect of the amendment that will be put in front of the council on December 6th.
Okay. All right. Any questions for City Manager Pingle? Planning calendar questions? Okay. Oh, on December 6th. Yes, we are doing photos. Thank you for that reminder. Okay.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Thank you. City Manager, looking at the calendar, there's a Lee Bima agreement, and it says hearing. Is that a public hearing? Because we haven't really discussed that. What is actually happening on the 6th?
Yes, that will be a public hearing.
Okay, thank you.
Right. It would be a public hearing and then a potential vote on the development agreement.
Okay.
So, yeah, we'll provide the council some more specific information, just because that'll be that's a quasi judicial vote, and so we'll just make sure everybody understands what that means before we get to the 6th.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.